At night, under the full moon with many weapons stuck in the ground. With their weapons, the soldiers in armor wanted to kill someone they called a demon. With black shoes, black robes, and white hair, and with red eyes above him, he ran towards the soldiers. He quickly found himself in front of one of the soldiers, which surprised the soldier. The man attacked the soldiers with purple attacks. While slashing the soldiers with his attacks, he continued to run. The man focused his attacks on his hands. He used his attacks on the ground, which made the ground crack. The cracked ground caused the power to flow from the ground. The soldiers were shocked by the purple attack that stuck to them. His attack made a large explosion which made the soldiers die immediately. After using his power, there was strength that came out of him. The man tried to stand up with his stick. With a lot of blood on his face, he was very tired. He tried to stand up using his stick. When he finally managed to stand up, he was surprised by the presence of someone approaching him. The person who approached her asked the man. She was a woman. She asked the man why he made all these decisions. The red-haired woman asked him the reason why he made a deal with the devil and betrayed them. She called the man's name. His name is Knox von Reinhafer. Knox was confused by the question that the woman mentioned. Knox felt that it was just their opinion. Knox felt that it was not him, but them who betrayed him. The woman told Knox to stop arguing and gave reasons why he could be this broken. Knox explained that at first, felt like an emergency landing. Suddenly blue light. The light turns into a screen telling if the player has completed the first part of Inner Lunatic 27 times. Someone is playing a game while breathing freely. He says if it's not bad. With lots of cigarette, but he's happy now. He gets a lot of items. And also successfully completed the hidden quest, and he felt satisfied. But one thing that made him feel hopeless was the fact that he would die next month, 2 years ago. When he was examined at the hospital, one of his organs was affected by a dangerous disease. The doctor there told the MC, Yuchan, not to panic and listen carefully. When Yuchan heard the doctor's diagnosis, he was shocked by what the doctor said. At the hospital, which has many residential areas around it, Yuchan holding his diagnosis paper, he has moved to 2 different hospitals and he has carried out many tests, but the results are still the same. The hospital has given painkillers to Yuchan and asked him to drink them when the pain gets worse. Immediately Yuchan's hands went limp when he heard that. Back to before the flashback. Yuchan dropped the medicine. With his hands getting weaker, he couldn't take the medicine anymore. He had been going through this suffering for 2 years. Yuchan saw to his right. A lot of rubbish that had not been thrown away because his illness was getting worse. With a very bad cough, he covered his mouth. Yuchan looked at his hand, which had a lot of blood. He felt that he would die soon. Yuchan wiped the blood in his mouth. He felt that the result would not change even if he continued to think about it. On his cell phone, there was a notification coming in. Yuchan took his cell phone and saw what notification was appearing. The notification came from one of the hospitals that had appointment with Yuchan to do an examination. Yuchan opened his cell phone with his fingerprint and started pressing the notifications. Yuchan felt that even though his situation was like this, he didn't have anyone to chat with. No one contacted him after his memory disappeared, and there was no one he could contact. While holding his used tissue tightly, Yuchan felt like he couldn't go anywhere with the situation now. Yuchan was surprised by the paper given to him. Yuchan's illness is terminal cancer. The paper came from the hospital, church brochures and other things. Yuchan crumpled the paper hard. With a mixture of despair, anger, and sadness, he threw the paper. Yuchan was sweating after doing that. He was surprised by his computer screen suddenly turned on. On his computer, the game he was playing, Inner Lunatic, asked Yuchan if he wanted to start a new game. Yuchan felt this was all he could do. Yuchan pointed his mouse and pressed yes. He entered the name in the game with the name Carl. While looking tired, he was confused with the name of the character he will play this time. After he chooses his name, he must then choose the trait he will use. Yuchan is now confused about which trait he will use, which is Sensitivity Genius, or Swordsmanship and Combat Genius. When he is confused about which trait he will choose, Yuchan is surprised by the notification in the game. The game warns players not to choose 2 genius trait and asked Yuchan to choose one, or he would be punished. Yuchan didn't care and still chose him, but as punishment he was given a negative trait, namely terminally ill. He was surprised by the punishment the game gave him. Yuchan laughed at his game character who had the terminally ill trait. The system in the game asked Yuchan whether he would start the game with the character he chose. Yuchan happily accepted. Yuchan pressed his mouse to press the yes button. Suddenly his eyes became blurry. He felt sucked into the game. Yuchan got goosebumps and immediately dropped his chair. His eyes started to blur while trying to stand up. He was confused and felt like he was going to die now. Along with making his finished character, Yuchan, thinks that he is used to death, but in reality he is not. Even though at least he wanted to at least die the way he wanted when he thought like that there was a system that changed the username forcibly. The synchronization counted from 1% and stopped at 71% of the location which was previously at Yu-chan's house, which immediately changed to someone else's room. Nobleman. The system said his character setting had been completed. With the lowest of gasps, Yu-chan tried to get up. He woke up panting. Yu-chan was surprised by something around him. He was surprised by his room, which had become more luxurious and felt enveloped in a sense of déjà vu. While confused and guessing, he stood up and tried to look for a glass. And when he found a glass and seeing his own face, Yu-chan realized that he had become the worst character, called Nox in the game, which he called a damn game. Nox von Rainhafer is the third leading dark family in Inner Lunatic. This family is closely related to the criminal family in the lunatic world, and there are 5 brothers in the Rainhafer family. The Rainhafer family has given birth to talented children who excel in magic and swordsmanship for centuries. But in the Rainhafer family, there is only one who is not talented, namely the youngest child named Nox. Because of that, he hated the world because of his weakness and ended up making a forbidden contract with the devil, and that way he became the worst villain in the Inner Lunatic story. And now Yu-chan has become that worst villain. He was shocked by this incident and wondered if this just a dream. When he was looking in the mirror, suddenly a screen lit up behind him. On the screen were listed name, gender, age, species, main elements, achievements, and also traits. Nox was surprised because he could even see the status window too when he was looking at the status window too. In traits, the negative is terminally ill. Nox immediately realized that when he saw the trait, he assumed that this was the character he created earlier. Nox is confused because whether it is in the real world or even when he is here, he is both seriously ill. Nox is confused about how he could be like this, but Nox feels he understands the reason. Because when he made this character, he wanted to make a character that was similar to himself, namely a sufferer character. He is seriously ill and will soon die, and there is no one he can rely on. But Nox didn't expect that he would become a character he created himself. The system screen displayed a notification that there was a message that he hadn't read and asked Nox to read it. Nox was confused about the meaning of the unread message and pressed it. In that message, someone said hello to Yu-chan, and now he asks, should he now call him Nox? Nox was anxious because how could that person know his real name? Yu-chan was the name given by his parents, which he didn't know existed. Nox guessed that it was his parents who sent him here, but he didn't know how to find out the past that had disappeared from his memory. That person old Nox, even though Nox couldn't remember, but he wanted to say something. The person said it had been a long time since he saw Yu-chan, which immediately surprised him. The person appreciated Nox, who had survived for 2 years and deserved to be here. The person said to Nox, "Welcome back," which made him immediately wonder and be confused his statement. Nox speculated that what the person meant was that the world he lived in before was not reality, and his real world was in the game he was playing, namely the place he was in now. Nox held his hand, thinking that it didn't make sense. The person said that Hutsant tell him his identity now, but that person is a request to Nox, and that person also hopes he can help Nox. Nox was confused about what the person would do to help him. The person asked that Nox enter the Elydian Academy to develop his powers and asked him to stay as close to the main story as possible. The person said that the real truth was in that place and on the screen disappeared slowly. Nox asked him to wait a moment because he was curious about how it would end. First, Nox wanted to calm himself down from his confused situation. Nox saw the chaos. He said that now he had turned into the final boss character in the game called Inner Lunatic. Nox was confused by the person's request, who told him to stay in the story mainly because Nox thought that it was no different from telling him to die. But Nox remembered what that person said at the beginning. He felt that if the real reality was Inner Lunatic, then he couldn't give up on getting his memory back. Nox had to stay as close to the main story as possible until his memory came back. Then he also wanted to find the point. It's clear in this game, and the most important thing is that Nox wants and will definitely survive. To achieve this, Nox is willing to become the biggest villain if necessary. While smiling, Nox felt that this was not much different from what he was before, because from 2 years ago, since he lost his memory from the beginning, he was already suffering from a serious illness, and death could come to him at any time. He was filled with fear and wondered when his death would be, came to him, and the only thing that changed was the conditions around him. But it turns out that his current world is a world that he is quite familiar with. Nox asks the system to give today's date. The system displays today's date, February 4th, 1812. Seeing today's date, Nox feels that the time of his death has also changed. Nox has finished this game. 27 times he felt that what happened to him required him to start his 28th trial. Knox enthusiastically grabbed the door handle and tried to get out. When he wanted to pull the door without realizing it, it caused his joints to be injured. Knox was confused by the pain he felt now. Knox activated the negative trait sprained wrist due to the effects of the disease lightly. The system asked Knox to get enough rest so that he could recover quickly. His negative trait made him ask, "What is this?" Knox walked past the window holding his sore hand. He was confused by his fragile body that was like glass. He felt like a sunfish that would easily die. Knox felt sick because he was hit by his family's brown-haired maid. The collision made the maid's plate when it broke. The maid fell down in pain. She wondered who hit her and started looking up. Knox held his aching hand while the maid who bumped into him was shocked by his young master leaving the room. Knox endured the pain in his hand. Knox remembered the maid who bumped into him because he seemed to remember her. He remembered someone who had brown hair and the eyes are light golden brown as he remembers. The name is Rona. Rona apologized to Knox and asked him to forget this incident. Knox remembered this woman because even though she was only a side character, she always talked behind Knox's back. Knox didn't expect that this woman would talk behind Knox's back with that innocent face. Knox came at her with a threatening air. He would let her go just this once. But if Rona made a mistake like this again, she would know the consequences. With a feeling of fear, Ron apologized to the young master and promised not to make a mistake like this again. Knox was shocked by the situation around him, which suddenly became quiet. All the servants who saw him were shocked by Knox's behavior like that. All the servants, those around him, were scared and shocked to see this incident. Their expressions made Knox conscious. Knox slowly stood up while remembering that previously he was the trash of the family. Knox was confused about how Knox had been living his life. Rona asked his young master where he wanted to go so early. Knox without hesitation answered that he wanted to go to the training hall, making his servant once again shocked and confused. Knox asked Rona to come with him, making Rona afraid and protecting his body. Rona was happy that Knox wanted to hit her with a wooden sword. She walked a little nervously in front of Knox. Rona was surprised by Knox walking past her, while on the other hand, Knox was thinking about how to survive, because after being in the presence of death, he became convinced that he still doesn't want to die. To survive, Knox wants to quickly adapt to his current environment. Knox accidentally said it, but that doesn't mean I don't have a chance, making Rona behind him confused about what his young master meant. As a pro who completed Inner Lunatic 27 times, Knox not only knows the secrets in this game. Knox said the status window slowly, which makes the system screen appear. Inner Lunatic is a game about demonic and divine. The game focuses on conflict in the Empire, and this game has fans all over the world. What's special about Inner Lunatic is that each character has various growth paths and also has unique combinations of traits. Countless. There are many low-level traits, namely rare and common, that can be chosen. There is also a genius trait of which only one can be applied in practice. The genius trait makes it easier for Knox to reach the top of the chosen field. But this time he only chose 2 traits because this game has a feature called the punishment trait. This system applies increasing penalties, big if the trait chosen exceeds the limit. That's why even though Knox can choose 2 traits, he gets terminally ill as punishment. Swordman and Combat Genius is an ability that specializes in swords and other sharp objects. This trait can also help to reach the peak of martial arts. Then Sensitivity Genius is an ability that can increase sensitivity to magic. And also this trait can help to achieve maximum efficiency in circulating mana, and also many other useful things. Knox also has an Eye of Discernment, which can make it possible to see the status window of other characters for the user's benefit. Then Master of Acting, as the name suggests, this skill can help the user to become proficient in acting. Knox feels that if he uses this skill, he can felt a lot easier now that he was in the game. Then Steel Mentality can help him not to be afraid in a fight or when he is in a dangerous situation. But for Knox, the problem lies in the negative characteristics. Even though the biggest problem lies in terminal illness, Knox has several negative traits, namely terminally ill, cursive language, frequently sick, cold hands and feet, and transmigrated. Knox feels like a walking hospital with the many negative traits he has. In the case cold hands and feet, it's almost impossible to even set in Glacial Zone without an ignition skill. And so long as Knox have frequently sick in a chapter in the game, Knox will faint. Knox ruffled his hair. He was confused because he guessed he couldn't handle it if the negative traits were still there. Making Rona confused, Knox looked at the training hall while thinking about dealing with them one by one. Rona thought that now they had arrived at the training hall. She wondered if Knox plans to go there. Rona was surprised by something in front of her. Nox glanced at the hall seriously. Nox walked towards the hall it was made of and began to open the large hall door. Curse of Languishment could create a powerful curse of suffering that was instilled into the user even though the growth rate was half, but it can make the user more vulnerable to enemy debuffs by 2 times. And Nox intends to first get rid of the Curse of Language first. Nox raised his wooden sword. He held it tightly while thinking that he only had one conclusion. Nox swung his sword, but when he had only done it for a moment his body immediately went limp. He thought that he had messed up. He was like the beginning of a novel. Nox dropped his wooden sword, which made the sword spin. Nox fell down and felt very tired while thinking that that was what he had concluded after careful consideration. Nox felt so tired that he couldn't even swing the sword 10 times. He didn't expect that the Curse of Languishment drained his energy so much. Still in the training hall, Nox looked around. He already suspected that there were many well-maintained weapons here. Nox had already guessed that because the Rainhafer family had a foundation for being on the battlefield. Nox thought that what made the Rainhafer family famous and different among various strong noble families was their swordsmanship and the element of darkness. And the reason why they were able to gaining this fame is because of their sword art, which can be filled with the element of darkness and makes them able to cut their enemies easily. And one of the important things that makes the Rainhafer family famous is because of their leader's sword, a weapon called the Dark Sword of Force, which is only given to the successor who becomes the next head of the family. But Nox feels that it has nothing to do with him. Nox felt that their superiority was not only their swordsmanship and that being part of this family had many advantages. Nox thinks his profits are like that, and there is also money and money. Nox only thinks about money because for him money is the most stable even though everything needs money. Rainhafer is the best family in this world, and of course they accumulate a lot of money. They even want to give a large amount of money to Nox, who is their trash youngest son. Nox's father, Theo, might not even mind if Nox wastes his money. Nox thinks that Nox's character is a character that is given various things. He is the youngest son of trash who has a reputation. Nox starts to stand up. He thinks about spending a lot of money, his feet once again becoming stiff and unable to stand. Nox felt that he couldn't run anymore until something he asked Rona was done. A few minutes ago, Rona was pushing a trolley which at the top was a teapot. Next to the teapot there was a glass, towel, and water. Rona told her young master that she had prepared a wooden sword, towel, and water. Rona was surprised because it turned out that this young master was really want to practice. Nox says good job, and because there is no one in this place, Nox asks Rona to come closer, which makes Rona shocked. She was frightened and confused and asked why. Thinking that Nox wanted to hit him, Nox was angry with Rona's behavior. He was confused about what Rona was talking about. Nox asked Rona to come closer to him while touching his ear, which made Rona confused. Nox whispered something which made Rona expressionless and immediately agreed. But before she realized something, Rona was shocked and confused about what Nox wanted with that much money. Rona nervously told Nox that she would pretend not to hear what her young master said. Nox clenched her fists and told Rona not to say anything and just take it. Rona was cornered with forced to say yes because she didn't want to be scolded. Rona slowly left while thinking that Nox hadn't changed at all. After leaving the hall, Rona slowly closed the door. Nox didn't know how well Rona was doing her job, but Nox felt that if Rona could do it quickly, she would definitely be able to take him tomorrow. While thinking, Nox went to the place to drink that Rona had provided beforehand. He took the teapot and poured water into the glass. Nox thought about how he could solve the problem of the curse and his low energy before Rona finished carrying out his task. He didn't think it would turn out this bad. Someone behind him called young Master Nox with a respectful greeting, making Nox, who was drinking, surprised. Nox was surprised by the presence of the person behind him. That person was a butler named Rotwell de Hernerock. He is the real power holder of the Rainhafer family, and he is someone who can't be bothered or anything like that. He is the butler and right hand of the head of the family named Theo von Rainhafer, who is Nox's father, and his nickname is Rotwell. Remembering that Nox's hands were shaking, he didn't expect that someone who was difficult to deal with would appear so quickly. Nox felt that Rotwell usually wouldn't care about the youngest trash son. He was confused as to why Rotwell approached him. Nox put down his glass even though he would get into trouble this. He said while using his weapon, which is a positive trait, namely a master of acting. Rotwell said that he was being assigned by the head of the family to deliver news to the young master. Nox asked about the news in question. Rotwell said that the head of the family urged the young master to join him for dinner today. Nox was confused because he had just transmigrated and didn't know anything. He was confused by the head of the family who wanted to eat with him. Knox asked the butler to tell the head of the family that he would not be joining us for dinner tonight. Rotwell sighed and was confused as to why the head of the family suddenly asked Rotwell's youngest son to explain to Knox that the young lady from the Steeliner family had come, visited, and she came to attend night training. The young lady is described as having black hair and having the power of the fire element. Rotwell added that if Knox was not present, the head of the family would be very angry. Knox was forced to follow his father's wishes because he had no other choice. The butler was surprised by the young master's choice. The youngest suddenly changed his mind. Rotwell felt that his young master today was not as nervous as usual and asked what he meant. The butler explains that usually Knox doesn't like swinging a sword, but he was in the hall practicing today. Rotwell was curious and asked Knox what the reason was. Knox told Rotwell that the only thing he could say was. Suddenly Knox became serious. He added how impudent a mere servant seemed to interfere in his master's affairs. Knox explained that whatever he did or the reason why he did it was none of Rotwell's business. Knox said that he was the one who decided what he wanted to do. Rotwell was immediately stunned to hear Knox's statement. He apologized to Knox for behaving rudely. Knox then went out of the training hall, leaving the family head who didn't want to say anything. When Knox left, Rotwell speculated that maybe Knox knew something, and he felt he had to immediately report it to the head of the family. The place changed to outside the training hall. Knox closed the door with sweaty hands. Covered in sweat and panting, he didn't expect that this incident will happen. Knox is relieved because who knows what will happen if the head of the family finds out that he was transmigrated. He remembers the young lady of the Steeliner family. He is confused about why the woman suddenly came and appeared like this. At night at the Rainhafer family residence, one of Knox's brothers insulted Knox and said that he was only disturbing the atmosphere in the dining room. Knox didn't say anything. Nothing and did not respond to the insult. The brothers who insulted him were twins named Hatch and Alan. They felt that Knox no longer had ties to his family. Alan didn't expect to see Knox's face here. He felt that Knox was shameless. They made fun of Knox by calling him rude because they thought that Knox had beaten up a servant. Knox didn't say anything, but in his mind he felt accused because he wasn't the one who did all that. The door to the Rainhafer family dining room opened. The servant bowed his body to welcome the head of the family. The head of the family saw them and felt that everyone was here. Knox looked at the head of the family nervously. Theo von Rainhafer, the head of the family, had finally arrived. Nervously, Knox said that the head of the family and father of Knox had arrived, and the young lady of the Steeliner family. The young lady of the Steeliner family welcomed them. She introduced that her name was Talia von Steeliner. She felt happy to meet members of the Rainhafer family. The head of the family explained to their family members that the young lady of the Steeliner family had come to their house to attend night training for a while. The twin brothers were happy with Talia's presence. The head of the family asked his family members to welcome her warmly. Knox remembered that Talia was a side character in Inner Lunatic and was the character who punished the antagonist Knox. Nervously, he interpreted that that means she is the one who will stab Knox in the chest in the future. Still at the Rainhafer family residence, Knox's father and head of the family was shocked because Knox apparently accepted his request to come to dinner here. Knox, with a nervous face, didn't say anything. Talia, who saw the incident, was confused. The head of the family felt everything was here and told everyone to eat. On the dining table, there was beef and other food nearby. Knox started to scoop up the cake with a spoon. Knox was surprised to see the twins gossiping about him. Hatch asked him to make a decision immediately. Hatch asked his father about who would be admitted to a Lydian academy and become a new talent. Her brother's statement made Knox flinch. The head of the family feels that it is time for him to think about and choose who will be admitted to the academy. The Lydian Academy is the most important place in Inner Lunatic. In the story, Inner Lunatic tells the story of cadets who fight demons in various situations. Unexpectedly at the academy, with a nervous face, Knox felt that he had to go there to be close to the main story and recover his memory. Knox feels that as long as it doesn't have an impact on the main story, he intends to find and gather his colleagues. The principal feels that his family members already know, but he wants to explain that there are only 3 invitations given to each family to enter a Lydian academy. The head of the family explained that this was done to protect the academy from the power of the nobles, and previously he had used his 2 invitations for the first son and second son, and the Rainhafer family only had 1 invitation left. Previously, the first son and the second son. He has entered the Lydian Academy, and there is only 1 ticket left for Knox and his twin brother to compete for. Knox felt that before looking for a partner, he had to get an invitation to enter, which felt more important to him. The head of the family wanted to choose who went to the academy according to the Rainhafer family tradition. Knox felt that his father intended to choose one person by making his child each other, fighting with each other. The head of the family was surprised because he did not expect that his youngest son would speak first. The head of the family agrees that he intends to hold his match next month, and he will decide who will go after seeing his son sparring at the training ground. The twin brother belittles Knox, telling him to give up immediately because there is no hope for him to win because Knox was very weak and had never once held a sword. Talia was surprised by the twins' self-confidence. Knox answered saying if it was by drinking a glass of wine. He said that it was something normal to say after winning, right? Alan was angry because Knox thought he could beat them. Not intending to listen to their ridiculous opinions, Knox looked at the wine. He thought that this was the only chance for him to enter the academy, and with full confidence he said, if he was the one who was going to enter a Lydian academy. His father was surprised by Knox's sudden statement. His older twin brother was angry at Knox's words. Talia, who heard it, smiled and laughed a little. Talia felt that their youngest sister was very confident, and she felt proud with him. Even though Knox looked normal in his mind, Knox was surprised by Talia's expression and words. Knox felt that he had received attention from someone who shouldn't need Knox to get attention from him. In a mansion, the head of the family in the building was reading documents. The head of the family was listening to Rotwell, and from Rotwell's report, Knox's habits suddenly changed. Rotwell confirmed that his young master's habits had changed. Theo actually thought it was something unbelievable, but when he saw it for himself, Theo felt that Knox's heart had changed. Theo speculated that it was possible that Knox had been possessed by a demon. Although he was not completely sure, Knox's sudden change in habits made him curious. He then called Rotwell, and the head of the family told him to keep an eye on Knox. At the maid's training place there, were looking at and talking about someone. That person was Knox. They didn't expect Knox to go to training again. The maid there didn't think that this was real. One of the maids said that she heard there was a competition next month, and maybe that was why the young master was training, but one of the maids was confused because Knox only ran at the training ground and didn't practice anything else. Knox confused because he could hear their gossip very clearly even though he didn't have the trait for that. Knox didn't care about the gossip and kept running. When he was running, his stamina increased by 0.1 Knox. He was annoyed because it only increased by 0.1. The reason Knox chose to run was because his biggest problem was his physical strength. The requirement to activate sword and martial arts genius was that he had to have physical strength for. Knox sad because if someone's stamina is not as low as theirs, they will open everything. And one of the reasons it's difficult to develop is because he has the negative trait curse of languishment. Knox stopped running because he was very tired. Knox smiled broadly. He intends to increase his stamina by 1.9 in a month. Curse of languishment is a curse that reduces it by half the user's physical growth. Knox has been running until he felt like he was going to die, but all he got was an increase of 0.1 stamina. And also, the terminally ill also cuts down on Knox's physical growth, which makes him have to try 4 times harder than other people. He is confused by this kind of difficulty. No matter how hard Knox tries, he can only improve to 15 because of Knox's terminally ill trait. Thinking about it later, the sound of a trolley was heard and the trolley was heading towards Knox. What prompted him was Knox. She came to bring the item that his young master asked for yesterday. Knox didn't expect Rona to be more agile than he thought. Knox said that at least she is more useful now. Previously, Knox wasn't too sure he could get 4 stamina, but now he wouldn't have any more problems. Because he already got the 3-headed serpent's poison, fairy's spring water, golem's core, and rapid physical growth scroll. Knox held a potion while saying that he was a pro who used the ancient method. In the sword training ground, Rona was curious as to why the young master needed all this. Rona explained that it was very poisonous, it was difficult to use, and it was a medicine that other people usually avoided, and also the price was very expensive. Rona felt that only scrolls were useful for Knox. Knox said if they avoid it because they don't know how to use it. Rona confused about how to use it. Knox looked at the trolley. He took the 3-headed serpent's poison, and in an instant he drank it all down. His expression was shocked. He told Knox that it was poisonous. Knox felt sick even though he had expected it, but he didn't know the impact. Knox, who was poisoned, looked at ahead. After drinking the 3-headed serpent's poison, the screen said that Knox's stamina had increased by 1.5 temporarily. The countdown for a while appeared to be 10 minutes. Knox held her hand. Rona said she would call the waiter, but Knox told her to wait, and Dal started to take other items. Knox took the golem's core and ate it and said it was delicious. Rona panicked as she said that it was not the way to eat the core. Because Knox ate the golem's core, he now entered a hardened state. The system said that the hidden part had opened because the three-headed serpent's poison and the golem's core had reacted. Nox was happy because the hidden part had opened. With the increasingly lethargic state, he intended to continue. The golem's core could actually make humans harden temporarily to strengthen the user's defense, but this item is usually made to create artificial golems. And if this item is used together with the three-headed serpent's poison, its special effect can make the curse of language disappear. Nox clenched his fists and thought that this was very good because the curse of language had disappeared. Ron panicked and thought that his young master would immediately die. But Nox felt a bit disappointed because there would no longer be any hidden parts open. On the other hand, Rona was surprised because it turned out that Nox was still alive. Rona blushed and started to close her eyes and was surprised by her young master's sudden behavior. Nox started to unbutton her clothes one by one, making Rona, who saw her, confused. After opening a few buttons, Nox took Fairy's spring water, Rona blushing and surprised by her young master. Nox used Fairy's spring water by pouring it all over her body, because the Fairy's spring water reacts with the golem's core, making the effect of the golem's core disappear. Nox felt that this feeling was very interesting. After the golem's core effect disappears, a secret chip appears which opens. With the opening of the secret chip, Nox is given the Blessed Growth trait for a while. Blessed Growth is a positive trait that can double the user's growth rate until stamina reaches 5. Nox is happy because this was according to his plan. Nox only needed one more step. He took the Rapid Physical Growth scroll. Nox tore the scroll, which gave him a buff which made his stamina growth increase 100%. Nox was thinking that he had gotten rid of the curse of languishment, and with Blessed Growth, he had removed the penalty from terminally ill, which could reduce physical growth as much as 50%, and he has even used scrolls. Nox was happy because as a result his growth was 2 times faster than before. He was excitedly thinking about trying to increase his stamina again. Suddenly Rona hugged him, which made Nox surprised. Rona was worried about Nox. Was he okay? Rona thought when Nox took off his clothes after drinking the poison, he thought his young master was crazy. Nox felt uncomfortable. He told Ron to get a towel for him. Rona looked very worried and sad about the incident. Nox actually felt uncomfortable, but because he managed to lift the curse, he would let it go this time. Nox told Rona that he was fine. Rona asked his young master if he was sure and didn't need to be called butler. Rona also felt that the young master also needed rest. Nox said he was okay. Now Rona was confused and asked what else he needed from him. With a faint smile, Nox told Rona to run with her, back to the training ground again. Nox ran when she was hot, and behind her Rona also ran with her while carrying a towel. Someone from behind the iron bars of the window. The woman was confused by Nox and said why. She was Talia with a sullen face. She was surprised why such a weak child agreed to compete with her siblings. Talia's maid named Emma. The maid told her lady not to underestimate the youngest son of the Rainhafer family. Emma felt that it was really inappropriate. Talia stood up and felt that what she said was not wrong. While stretching her hand, Talia said to Emma that Even couldn't hold his sword and all he did was run without a care in the world. Rainhafer soldiers even offered to teach him swordsmanship, but Nox shook his head and rejected the offer. Confidently, Talia felt that next month Nox would definitely be beaten up badly. Talia felt worried because she knew that would happen. She glancing at the iron bar window, she was confused as to why she couldn't stop worrying about it. Talia felt that this shouldn't be happening and started walking out. Emma was surprised by her lady who wanted to go. She asked her lady where she wanted to go. While holding her wooden sword, Talia told Emma that she wanted to go out for a while. Talia came to the practice park. Talia's shadow was visible because of the sunlight. Nox was surprised by Talia, who approached him. Talia, who approached him, started calling him. He introduced her name once again. Her name was Talia. On the outside, Nox looks expressionless, even though in his mind he is confused about why Talia is here. Nox asks her why she is here, and he feels he has heard her name. Talia is surprised and confused by Nox's cold attitude. Talia thinks that Nox might be surprised after seeing her beauty. With shaking hands, she was sure that was the reason. Nox was confused by Talia's behavior. With a blushing face, Talia asked Nox if he was training now because he thought he could beat your brothers. Nox, who heard it, didn't say anything. Talia thought that Nox was just running like that. She thought that Nox wouldn't win. Rona, who heard it too, thinking like that. Talia confidently wanted to offer help to Nox. Nox quickly answered he was grateful, but he was not at all interested and asked Talia to leave. That answer shocked Talia. Talia was angry because Nox had rejected her offer. She panicked because if Nox said something like that, he would be hated by the girls. Talia very angry she now doesn't care about Nox. She hits Nox and tells him to do as he pleases. Nox, who has a weak body, feels a bit in pain. Nox was confused by Talia Rona's behavior, who was next to him. Thinking that his young master was really evil, Nox looked at him in surprise while wondering what was wrong with him. Out of curiosity, Nox looked at Talia's stats using the inspection skill. Then Nox saw Talia's traits. He was shocked because after Nox looked around, it turned out that Talia had extraordinary talent. In Inner Lunatic, the average adult stamina is only 4, and Talia, who has a stamina of 6, Nox thinks is quite impressive. Nox thinks that even though Talia doesn't have as much potential as 3 Sword Emperors, and not as much potential as the 4 Sages of the continent, Nox thinks that her potential is enough to reach the level beneath them. Nox also felt that she was strong enough to kill 1 or 2 demons, and even more so because of her fire attribute. Talia's fire attribute magic power will later rise as white fire, and with her white fire she will burn Nox, who is turned into a demon, to death. Nox thinks that if he makes Talia his partner now, there will be many events in the future that will happen. Messy. Nox sighed. He thought it made sense to be friends with someone who ultimately killed him. 1 month passed after that incident in the Rainhafer family residence. Talia was walking around looking around. She remembered the incident when she was training in the training hall. At that time, one of the Rainhafer family soldiers praised Talia for being able to understand quickly. That soldier said that Talia deserved to be a member of the Steeliner family. Talia recalled the incident. She wondered what it meant to be a member of the Steeliner family. A woman with sharp eyes glanced down. She was Talia's older sister. She defeated Talia easily, which made Talia fall and break her sword. Remembering the incident, it's embarrassing that Talia is pensive. Talia holds the sword in the scabbard tightly. She wonders whether she deserves to be a knight. Since time immemorial, knights are individuals who are not swayed by greed. They live frugally with one goal, namely sacrificing themselves for justice. Because of this mindset, someone can only become a knight after learning many sword arts and techniques. Remembering that, Talia confused about how Nox can beat his brothers who have trained all their lives just by physical training alone. Talia thought that it was impossible for Nox to beat them. The next day in the hot morning, the match day arrived. Nox was now facing her brother with many servants and maids watching them, and Rotwell, Talia, and the head of the Rainhafer family were watching them. From above, Theo's first wife, Priscilla, also watched the match. A few moments later, the head of the family called Rotwell. He asked Rotwell what he thought about the outcome of this match. Rotwell thought that if they saw what they had often seen before, he thought that young Master Elaine would win. Theo also agreed with Rotwell. Priscilla didn't say anything and remained looking at the match venue. Theo wondered if the head of the family had anticipated a different result. Rotwell believes that even though he knows that Nox has changed a lot, he doesn't get the impression that Nox will win. He feels that it is impossible. In the past, Rotwell once walked the path of a warrior and fought alongside the head of the family. Rotwell thinks that the sword is something that sometimes it's complicated, but sometimes it's the simplest thing in the world. How long a person practices and how long a person appreciates it determines that person's level. And according to Rotwell, there is only one thing that can turn everything around and make a stronger person kneel before you. That is the genius of a different world, like its meaning also means abundant talent. But Rotwell doubts whether Nox was born with such talent. Rotwell looked at the head of the family, who thought, it doesn't mean that Nox doesn't have potential. He told Rotwell not to underestimate the blood of the Rainhafer family in his veins. It's even possible for a brat, namely Nox, to have been born with potential as great as 3 Sword Emperors. On the other hand, Nox is annoyed because he doesn't have 4 stamina yet, making him unable to unlock the characteristics of swordsmanship and combat genius. Nox was confused by his misfortune. Even though Nox had high luck, Nox thought about the previous results. The result was that he couldn't succeed in raising his stamina to 4. While he was running, he guessed that his stamina was now at 3.8 now. The color he was at behind him called him. He asked his young master if he should continue running with him. Nox says if she doesn't come with him, who will help him? When he said that he accidentally said the truth when he told her to do it, that was because for him, seeing her like that was very pleasing to Rona, who heard her tell her young master that her heart had just come out. Nox gave her a towel, telling Rona to do it. One more task. His young master's order made him annoyed. Nox knew from his expression that Rona was definitely cursing him in his heart. Rona accepted the towel. He reasoned that now she was biting her tongue. Seeing Rona's behavior made him laugh. Nox remembered something. He thought, if you practice this much, Rona's stamina will definitely increase because you are curious about Nox activating the Eye of Discernment skill. He opened Rona's stats. He was surprised by Rona's stamina, which was 4.5. Nox was confused because he didn't expect a maid to be stronger than the average adult. Think a side character has higher stats than him even though he has been training for months. He feels this is unfair. Rona looks confused with Nox's expression. Rona told Nox that it was already evening and tomorrow was the day of the young master's match, so Rona asked he to rest now. Nox was annoyed because the match was about to start even though he didn't have 4 stamina yet. He felt that the time wasn't enough. Come back to now, Alan called Nox. Alan asked Nox to surrender now. Alan thinks that even though Nox is a burden on the family, he is still his little brother and he asks him to give up because he doesn't want to overdo it. Seeing Alan's face, Nox thinks that Alan definitely doesn't want him to give up. Alan admits this because honestly he wants to look good in front of the young lady, Steeliner's family, and he believes that Nox will help him. Nox is surprised that he is curious and doesn't know if it's a good idea. Alan wonders if Nox might also be interested in Talia. Nox doesn't care about what he says and he looks at Elaine's stats, seeing his stamina, which is 8. Nox feels that he can't possibly win with normal means. Nox starts making plans while the match judge informs him that the match will start soon. The jury said their names Nox von Reinhafer and Elaine von Reinhafer. He told them to accept the result of this match and not to oppose it. Nox felt nervous because if he lost here, everything would end and it would be impossible for him to get his memory back. Nox wanted to find out who sender of the letter, and even with a year's delay, he felt that his life would end. The thought of it made Nox grip his sword hard. The judge asked them if they were ready, and because they were ready, the judge started the match. Alan immediately attacked first with a vertical attack. Alan attacked him, but Nox managed to avoid it by rolling his body. Alan continued his attack by kicking him. Nox blocked the kick with his sword. The kick launched by Alan made Nox step back and almost leave the arena. While holding his sword, Nox glared at Alan. Alan praised Nox for being able to block his kick well. Alan launched repeated attacks at Nox. Nox felt that he couldn't enter Elydian Academy. While holding back Alan's repeated attacks, Nox added that meant he had to give up everything if he loses here and if he can win then. While he was thinking that, suddenly the system told him that his stamina had increased by 0.1. Seeing that made Nox surprised. Nox smiled. He said that if he wins he can get everything in his grasp. Alan was confused by Nox's words. He thought that his attack might make Nox stupid. Alan carried out another attack thinking that his attack would make Nox aware of Nox and not ready to receive a sudden attack from Alan. Priscilla, the first wife of the head of the family, thought that maybe she was too worried when she heard that the youngest child had changed. Seeing Nox being attacked, Alan, Priscilla have opinion that the last child of the Reinhafer family to enter the Elydian Academy was his son. Theo, who was the head of the family, felt that Nox was very sad. Priscilla looked at Theo, who was watching the match. He thought that in the end this family would also be his. The head of the family said to Rotwell that previously he was really looking forward to his match because he said he had changed, but in the end this was the best for him. Rotwell asked the head of the family, was it necessary for he to stop this match? Rotwell felt that if they didn't stop this match, young Master Nox would need a long time to recover. Alan attacked Nox blindly, asking him if he was tired. Theo thought that Alan and Hearts had pretty good abilities, but not to the level of their raw diamonds, are also far behind Garen's first brother. The rule of might of the Black Sword is a rule that subdues things under his feet and makes his enemies kneel with great strength. Nox looks tired. Theo feels a little impressed with his youngest child. He is curious from whom Nox learned it. The head of the family starts. He stood up and said that the match had to be stopped. But coincidentally, before the match was stopped, his stamina increased by 0.1, which made his stamina become 4. And because now his stamina has 4 characteristics of swordsmanship and combat genius have been unlocked and activated. Nox is happy because who would have thought that luck would be on his part? Seeing Nox smile again made Alan feel that Nox had lost his mind and gone crazy. Nox activated the genius time stream skill, making the head of the family feel the pressure. Nox activated the skill, making a lot of time surround him. Suddenly everything stopped. Nox thought if he had ever heard a saying that genius people and ordinary people live in different worlds. Nox was surprised because he had never directly experienced using genius time stream skills. Nox said that his skill makes everything appear to move slowly, a skill that makes time move many times slower. The enemy looks slow in contrast to him, who looks fast, even though he feels that it is very difficult to use this skill to its full potential. Nox looking at the soaring Alan, he thought that as long as his swordsmanship and combat genius characteristics were active. He looked at Alan's hand and added that if it was confirmed, Nox attacked Alan's sword hilt quickly, which made Alan's hand fly off. Alan was surprised by Nox's attack, which was so fast that he didn't see it. Nox looked at Alan, adding that he was the winner in this matches. Alan's sword fell from his hand. He held his aching hand while glancing sharply at Nox. Nox held his sword. He glanced down while thinking that this was very fun. Alan was confused by what Nox did just now. Nox felt that even though he had gained the ability that he didn't want to be careless, because his skill only lasted 5 minutes, which made him have to end this within that time. Nox said to Alan, pretending that previously he was just playing with him. He said to his brother that now he was bored. Nox told his brothers that now he wanted to end this as soon as possible, so he told them to attack him at the same time. The twin brothers were shocked by Nox's statement. Nox asked his father to allow him to fight his brothers at the same time. Theo was surprised by his youngest child's statement. Rotwell looked at the head of the family. He also felt confused by Nox's request. Talia whispered, confused by what Nox was doing. Theo felt that his youngest child's aura had changed. He thought that maybe there was still something wrong. Nox hides, and now that Theo intends to keep an eye on Nox for longer, the head of the family allows Nox's request. Priscilla wanted to refuse permission, but the head of the family gave a signal to remain silent, and now he immediately started the match. Alan angrily took his sword. Hatch told Nox to get ready. They attacked Nox simultaneously. Nox parried their swords. Alan and Hatch attacked Nox repeatedly, and Nox managed to fend them all off. Alan told his brother to attack him from the left. Hatch, whose self-esteem was damaged, told Alan to be quiet. Nox was attacked repeatedly, and he, without looking tired, managed to fend them all off. When he used his skills, his mastery of underground lower sword art had increased thanks to the genius time stream special effect. Nox was happy as his mastery increased. Now he wanted to try to see their sword swings. Nox responded to their continuous attacks with his own continuous attacks, making one of them feel the impact of his attack. Nox attacked the shoulder of one of his twin brothers, making him feel pain. He touched his hand, which felt pain, and also they looked like they had fatigue is inversely proportional to Nox, who doesn't look tired at all. Seeing that Talia was surprised by Nox's ability, Nox looked at the twins. Nox guessed their thoughts from their confused expressions. He guessed that now they thought that Nox, who was a disgrace to the family, could change this drastically. The twins looked at each other. Nox told them not to be careless. Nox's words shocked them. Nox continued that they shouldn't be careless in the middle of a match. Nox, who was suddenly in front of them, was shocked. The twin brothers attacked him again blindly, but Nox easily brushed him off. Nox even reversed the situation by making them bounce. Nox thought that even though there was an important issue at stake in this sparring practice, he considered swinging that sword. While continuing his attack, he said that it was fun. Nox's last attack shocked Talia, Rotwell, every maid, and the butler. He even shocked the head of the family. One of the twins said that this was impossible. Alan was made bounced off by Nox's attack. They said damn, they didn't expect to be defeated by Nox. At that moment, coincidentally, the duration of her genius time stream had ended, and with a sigh of relief, Nox felt that with this the match had ended. Priscilla shouted her child's name. She was worried about her child's condition. Nox told the jury because she felt that she had won. It had been determined. Somewhat nervously surprised, he answered, of course. The jury said that the winner was Nox von Rainhafer. Hatch still couldn't understand that they were defeated by the trash of the Rainhafer family. Nox dropped his sword because the match was over. His sword bounced because it was made of iron. Even though Theo didn't look smiling, but he felt proud. Nox felt that all this was over. He told his father that he would like to excuse himself. Nox started walking out of the training hall. Talia curiously looked at Nox, who was walking away. With enthusiasm, Talia planned to immediately follow Nox. When he left the training hall, he saw that it was already afternoon. Nox looked tired after that incident. He looked at her hand and saw that there was blood on her hand. Nox felt that he had pushed himself too hard with the duration of his skills. Genius time stream skill has a big weakness. If it is used past its time limit, Nox will be affected by the rebound debuff effect. And because of the debuff effect of his skill, Nox's life energy is reduced by 2 days and 17 hours permanently. Nox feels that this is the worst debuff because he can make it with quickly fell ill, plus he was already suffering from a serious illness. Nox was grateful because the effect didn't happen in front of other people, because if even one person found out, Nox thought that his registration at the academy would definitely be cancelled even though he had worked hard. Nox looked behind. He was surprised because he was suddenly called. The person who called him was Talia. He didn't expect Nox to be injured. He asked Nox if he was injured during the sparring practice earlier. Nox felt annoyed because he had been found out. Nox was annoyed because he was caught. Plus, of all people, Talia was the one who found him. Nox thought that no matter what, his father shouldn't know about the side effects of his skills. Nox wanted to make Talia shut up, but when he just wanted to speak, Talia praised him because Nox could have feeding her brothers with that body. Nox was amazed by Talia's intentions. With a blushing face, she started playing with her hair. Talia felt that she seemed to have misunderstood Nox. She misunderstood because after 1 month she saw him. Nox never held a sword in his hand at all. On the first day, Nox only swung a few times with bad posture, and how could someone like him be able to win? It's clear that it's because Nox is a talented child. Talia was curious and also wanted to know how Nox developed his talent and how he was able to develop his skills, but during sparring practice when Talia saw him, she was confused by what she saw now. Talia was confused by Nox's condition even though he had previously beaten her brothers with amazing talents. Talia feels that Nox is not a braggart as the rumors say. With feelings of pity, Talia thought that Nox was training hard so she could win at any cost. Talia saw Nox coughing badly. Talia was worried, and she wanted to help Nox, who looked at Talia in surprise. He pushed Talia's hand away. He told Talia not to touch him. Even though in his mind he only had difficulty communicating with other people because previously he had only been in his room for 2 years. Nox also felt that her character was a character who was destined to die from the start. Talia, whose help had been rejected by Nox, played her hand. She said that she only wanted to help Nox. She apologized if she had made him uncomfortable. Nox was confused. He asked what was wrong. Talia said she didn't know that Nox was serious about training his sword skills even though from what Talia had heard, Nox had a weak body. And Talia thought that was the reason Nox was training her stamina. She apologized for the misunderstanding. Talia felt that Nox must have made a mistake without realizing it by acting like a braggart. She added that her maid Emma said anyone could make a mistake like that. Nox confused about how to repay Talia's kindness because she turns out to be an honest person like in the Inner Lunatic game. In the game, even though Talia is a child who has a chivalrous nature, she is the daughter of a nobleman who has a good reputation. So it is not easy for her to admit her mistakes in front of other people. Nox tells her that she thinks like that. Nox asks her not to telling no one that his nose was bleeding. Talia seriously accepted his request. Nox felt that now he didn't need to worry about it anymore. Nox walks away telling Talia to keep her promise. Talia feels a feeling of love when she is near Nox, at the head of the family's workplace at night. The head of the family feels that his prediction is correct. He asks Rotwell what he thinks about Nox's talent. Rotwell says that at first he was confused because Nox was just silently receiving attacks. But at his current age, he is sure that young Master Nox is the best child among the children his age. The head of the family told Rotwell that he was also thinking the same thing, but he was not sure. The head of the family believed that Nox was still hiding his talent. The head of the family told Rotwell to monitor Nox's movements, but the head of the family said that he could only monitor what Nox does. Rotwell accepts it and will carry out its duties. Theo is now curious about what Nox can do. While looking at his hand, Theo says whether Nox has the talent to inherit the power of the Black Sword. Theo holds his hand. He tells Rotwell that he doesn't have much time now. He tells Rotwell that now he has an important role. Rotwell was surprised. He told the head of the family that he would do his best. Elsewhere on the same day in Nox's bed, the system informed him that Nox had successfully completed the tutorial quest because he managed to win his first battle. Nox felt that this world was the real world, but he was still confused because the system like in the game still existed. There is even a status window that is still there. The system notifies Nox that he will be given a reward. Nox was given 3 stats distribution tickets for free. Nox was happy and thought this was the best, but Nox felt a bit annoyed because previously he had been running for a whole month and only increased his stamina by 2. Nox felt that the system should have given prizes earlier. Nox thought about raising one of his stats. He started to open the status window. Nox started pressing one of the stats and increasing it. Instead of increasing his stamina, he preferred to increase his luck. Nox thought that the reason he chose luck was because it was a statistic that could not be increased by his own efforts, and in the Inner Lunatic game the luck stats were much higher from anything. Nox is now curious to check if this is the same as the Inner Lunatic game. Because he has completed this game 27 times, Nox was given special privileges. He was given 1 gacha trait ticket at random and received 1 skill confirmation ticket. A giant gacha machine suddenly appeared in front of Nox. Nox felt strange when he saw it directly with his own eyes. Nox started turning the gacha button because now he was curious and wanted to see. Nox thought that maybe when he maximized his luck stats there was a 95% chance of him getting intermediate or higher. The gacha machine started spinning and chose what Nox would get. In gachas, gray for low grade, silver for intermediate grade, and gold for high grade. And rainbow colors for highest grade. Nox now wants to get gold or higher. There is a ball coming out of the gacha machine. The ball starts to explode. Nox doesn't look surprised because he has seen this before. Nox is happy because the gacha he got is gold. Nox with excitedly started to open it. Nox got the high-grade power of the supreme trait. Nox was surprised because he didn't expect to get this. Trait information begins to be displayed. The trait effect can reduce the opponent's stats by 20% when the user has lower stats than the opponent. Nox is happy with the traits he got. He didn't expect a debuff skill like this to appear, but currently Nox still has other rewards. The system asks whether Nox wants to use the skill confirmation ticket. Nox has determined the skill that he will get from here, namely one of the hidden pieces that can be obtained from the Rainhafer family. And he also really needs that skill. His father will call his older brothers to the residence, and at that time his skill will be useful there. Nox remembers if Green's older brother will be returning home soon. Green is the second son of the Rainhafer family, and it has been a long time since his graduation at Lydian Academy, and to carry out his obligations as a knight he went on a journey. Nox was dizzy because of the hidden pieces, and now Grin is the one who makes him have to think about it and not be given time to rest, Nox thought. But at least now he doesn't have to worry about Talia anymore. Nox felt that Talia was not someone who would break her promise, and also Nox felt that Talia no longer had a reason to approach him. But in the morning at Rainhafer's residence, Nox felt uncomfortable with the presence of someone in front of him, because it turned out to be inappropriate. I think Talia will still come to him. Nox asked Talia what was her business coming to him because he felt that his business with Talia was finished. Talia said I in a small voice. Nox was confused about what Talia wanted to say. Talia apparently asked Nox how to get stronger like him. Hearing this, Nox was confused by Talia's request. Nox told Talia he knew that for 1 month he had been practicing Talia peeking and had seen everything. Talia was confused by the words Nox said peeking. Talia chased Nox. She asked Nox to practice sparring or at least teach her how to practice. Nox knows that Talia did all that because she wanted to be recognized by her sister. Nox looked back and called Talia. He told Talia before asking her to do that or even think about practicing. Nox told Talia to think about the ability she had. Hearing that Talia became confused, Nox thought about how to cheer her up, but he realized that he had never entertained someone before. Nox told Talia not to compare herself with other people. Nox walked quickly, leaving Talia behind him. Talia didn't know what to say. With a red and sad face, she really regretted that Nox had left. Outside that place, Nox looked back, wanting to know whether Talia was chasing him or not. Nox thought Toa girl who wanted to kill him made Nox no need to show Talia the hidden pieces. Nox thought as he walked towards the Rainhafer family farm, where Nox Theo's father was waiting for his arrival there. The place Nox visited now was one of 3 places on the continent that kept famous horses. Nox looked around curiously because this was the first time he had seen the family's horse stable. Rainhafer Rotwell, who was the butler, received a call from the head of the family. The head of the family felt that everyone was present, even though the head of the family already knew the reason for calling them here. The head of the family explained that today his children would choose the horse they would ride for the rest of their lives. Nox had already guessed that this day would come. In the inner lunatic, horses are not only sacred animals for the family Rainhafer, but horses are sacred animals for all corners of the continent. If someone wants to become a mage or knight, they have to choose one horse in their childhood, which will later become their lifelong partner. Lydian Academy also teaches how to ride a horse separately, and because there are many big battles in the second part of the game's storyline, Inner Lunatic, someone whose horse dies has to raise it again from scratch. Another reason someone raises their horse from scratch is because teleportation magic is very expensive. Even though Nox felt it was a hassle, horses were a very important means of transportation, and Nox felt he had to choose the best horse. The head of the family told Nox to choose first because he was the winner of the previous competition, and Nox was only given one chance to hear Nox's opinion first. Nox's brothers felt annoyed. Nox did not refuse his father's request and started looking at the horse on the green grass. Nox started walking towards where the horses were. Theo was curious and wanted to see the choices of his youngest son. Nox walked to where many horses had gathered. He was greeted by the person who looked after the horses. Nox started going around looking at the horses one by one. He looked at the horses that and felt that one of the horses he saw was cute, but his target was not a cute horse. He looked at one of the horses. The horse was black and thin, but that was what Nox wanted. Nox came to the horse and the horse slowly walked backwards because he was afraid. Nox confidently told the head of the family that he wanted this horse and decided to choose it. Knox's older brothers were surprised by his younger brother's choice. The head of the family was also surprised by Knox's choice, because he was doubtful about Knox's choice. The head of the family allowed Knox to choose another horse. Knox was surprised because he was given one more chance. The horse felt scared while Knox thought that in everyone's eyes his choice was wrong. But he chose this black horse for no reason. Knox activated the Eye of Discernment and the system started showing the stats of the chosen target. The horse, it has male genitalia, has the obsidian horse race and the darkness attribute, and its rank is higher grade. Basically, summoned beasts are divided into several ranks, and as they grow, someone can raise their horse to a higher grade. Knox smiled because that meant he could make the horse he chose become a higher rank. One of the reasons Knox chose him was because his race was obsidian, which it means black stone, which is the most valuable breed among other breeds. And Knox feels that if they knew about this horse breed, his father would immediately choose him. Knox smiled because at this time, this horse didn't look good because it was still weak and also had a debuff. Knox saw its negative trait, predestined death, and only had 2 days 16 hours 12 minutes left to live. Seeing the negative trait of this horse, Knox felt that this was much worse than limitations. But Knox made up his mind not to change his decision and continued to choose this horse. Knox felt that even though this horse had a severe negative trait, with his experience he could save this horse. Theo was confused by the choice made by his youngest son. Theo thought that Knox chose that horse because he felt similar to the weak horse in that way. Theo assumed that in the end Knox was just a weak child who needed love, and that made Theo very disappointed. The head of the family told Knox not to regret his decision. Because the head of the family was very disappointed, he left without thinking about choosing another horse for his son. His son and his servant were surprised by the head of the family suddenly leaving. The horsekeeper told the young master to let him take care of it and asked his young master to choose their horse. Knox was confused because his father thought his choice was very disappointing. Knox was surprised by Rotwell's presence. Rotwell asked his young master to determine the name of his horse. When he wanted to say the horse's name, the horse touched his hand. Knox was surprised by the horse suddenly touching him. While holding the horse's head, Knox said the name his horse is Carl because that name is the name Knox uses every time he completes Inner Lunatic. And that name means a lot to him. Back at the Rainhafer family residence in Knox's bed, the horse was seen on the bed and was being covered by Knox. Because Knox couldn't show what he was going to do now, he took the horse to his room. While he was thinking, surprised to see this horse, the horse stared intently at him. Just by looking at its eyes, Knox wasn't surprised because those eyes showed that Carl still hadn't given up on living. Just like those who still hope to stay alive, Knox wonders if Carl also wants the same thing. Knox calls Rona. He knows that Rona is outside, and if he doesn't answer, Knox will punish him. In a hurry, Rona runs, in which makes him fall. Rona says that he's done it. Came. Rona was confused by her young master, who could tell she was outside the house. Confused because Rona was always falling, but he felt that the moment was very right. Knox asked Rona to look after her horse. Rona was confused by the horse that was on the bed. Rona felt angry because she would definitely be the one to clean it later. With a smile, Knox asked Rona to take care of her sick horse. Carl looked at Rona, but Rona was forced to say yes, his request, and will take care of him. Knox feels that this is quite troublesome because what happens next will be quite surprising. And Knox wondered if this weak girl could get through it. While thinking about it, Rona asked Carl if he felt okay. A day later, someone shouted at the Rainhafer family residence. It was Rona. She felt sad because Carl had died and started calling for her young master. Knox was confused because Rona was crying as if her horse had died. Because beyond her expectations, Rona cared for Carl very sincerely, like giving him food, keeping him warm, and nurturing his body, which made Knox a bit sad. Because Knox knew from the start that this would happen. And he also knows that Carl won't be saved. Knox asks Rona not to cry because he wants to focus and her crying bothers him. Knox also asks Rona to stand up. Rona is sad because Carl is dead. Knox asks Rona not to worry about Carl because he will be there, on his side again. Hearing this, Rona became confused and thought that his young master was not serious. While holding back his anger, Knox told Rona to step back. Knox started to take a scroll from his pocket. Rona was confused about what his young master wanted the scroll to be. Knox opened the scroll and put it on the floor. Knox started to put his mana into the scroll, which caused the darkness element to come out. Rona was shocked by what his young master was doing. His darkness element was slowly disappearing, which made him nervous. Knox felt annoyed because his mana control failed and he intended to try it one more time. On the other hand, Rona asked her young master if what her young master had just used was mana. Nox was angry and told Rona that if she was noisy again, she would make it impossible for Carl to be resurrected. It was her mistake. Rona understood and immediately closed her mouth. Nox started to focus her mana again and tried to focus. Nox thinks that even though his ability to use mana is lacking, he feels that the problem is because he cannot gain enlightenment from the characteristics of mana-sensing genius. In the Empire, it is not allowed to use mana under the age of 15 without being a member of the Empire, and thanks to the regulations, that child of the Imperial family has magic skills, and that's something Nox can do now. Just channeling his mana like a waterfall. When he did that, Nox felt a weak energy under his fingers. Nox was surprised by the mana he produced. Nox smiled and said that this was fun. Nox had an idea. He started using the one-time skill confirmation ticket that he when Nox got the privilege before. Nox felt that he couldn't be wrong because what he was using now was black magic. By using the confirmation Nox skill ticket, you get a one-time use skill book of the killer Necronomicon. As the name suggests, the book has the element of darkness with a skull hand holding the book. The system confirms Carl as the intended target. The system accepts Nox's request who wants to use this skill on Carl. The undead in Inner Lunatic have two characteristics. The first is that they are creatures that are revived through dark magic and dark mana. Secondly, just because they are revived doesn't mean they don't have an ego. Instead, they are creatures that are reborn as a stronger existence. Besides that, they are very obedient to their owner. But the problem is that only one family can resurrect a corpse became undead, and that family was the renowned dark family of the Marba family. Rainhafer is also part of the renowned dark family, but unlike the Rainhafer family who act as knights, Marba is a family of black mages who generally control the undead. And the question is, can players who are not affiliated with the Marba family use their skills? Of course not. But Nox can use it because the one-time skill option that he got was the Necronomicon, which is nicknamed the Book of the Killer. Nox was surprised by the hands that appeared from where he was performing the ritual. These hands started to approach Carl, who was in the middle of the circle. Carl started to be pulled in by the hands because he was spending too much mana, making Nox hurt because he was worried that Rona was shouting his name. Nox signaled Rona to remain silent. Nox was still trying to continue the ritual because there was only a little left. Nox started coughing up blood because his organs were injured. Nox's mana started to run out, which made him unable to cast dark magic anymore. Nox became annoyed because of this. Nox looked forward, hoping that the ritual would be successful and a miracle would happen. As he hoped Carl would be successfully revived with making him undead, Carl, who had just woken up, spoke. Nox looked at Carl with the system telling Nox that he had successfully used his skill. The system informs that Carl, pet player, has come back to life as undead. Carl now has white eyes and he starts to see Nox. While panting, Nox is happy because the ritual was successful. Rona worries about him and calls him once again. Nox starts to stand up from his place. While wiping the blood from his mouth, he called Carl. Carl walked towards Nox, which made him breathe a sigh of relief. The positive characteristics now are Steel, Stamina, Endowed Warhouse, and Courage, and has the neutral characteristic of Single-Minded Devotion, and has the same general information except that the age has become 0 years. The negative characteristics have also been removed, and the time limit is 1 year. The pet growth ratio will increase 1.5 times, and because the pet is now undead, Nox can summon it and release it according to its mana. Nox holding Carl's head. He said that now Nox was the master. When Nox wanted to make a plan, something surprised him. Carl also looked in the same direction. It turned out that Rona was jumping and hugging them, making Nox and Carl feel confused. Nox asked Rona what he was doing. Rona didn't answer and could only cry. Rona thought that something bad would happen. She was confused by Nox, who could use mana like that. She also thought something happened to Carl. Carl, who heard it, became annoyed. Rona, who saw it, felt shocked and angry at Carl, who didn't know how much she loved him. Rona told Carl to give him the carrot she gave him, and Carl made a sound that seemed to say that he didn't want Nox, who saw all that could only smile. While holding his sore shoulders, Nox started making plans again. Nox planned to look for the next hidden piece. A few days later, at Rainhafer's residence, Nox started to pass through an alley and moved to the horse stables. Nox passed the place where the horses were kept, Hepis that place, and started towards the forest. Nox carried a jewel in his right hand and a map in his left hand. Looking at the map, Nox felt that the path had not changed much compared to the Inner Lunatic game. Nox was grateful and put the map in his bag. Nox thought that the second hidden piece from the Rainhafer family was an item that he had to get because that item could alleviating the characteristics of terminally ill. When Nox was thinking, he heard a sound from the bushes. Nox was shocked by the noise. Nox quickly started to turn his body towards the bushes. Nox thought that he was just being too alert. There was a sign in this forest. Nox felt that this was no longer a game but reality. On the sign it was written that the name of this forest was Forest of Missing Children, and small children are not allowed to enter because it can make them disappear and die. Nox continues if he doesn't want to die twice. The system notifies that Nox is now in the Forest of Missing Children. Nox is starting to enter this forest. The system notifies that Nox fails to complete the quest. He will die instantly. The Forest of Missing Children is in the Rainhafer family area, and this forest is a forbidden forest because of the darkness and fog. No matter how skilled a ranger or pathfinder, this forest is a place that has to be traversed. Nox thinks that, as the name suggests, this forest is a place where anyone can be like a lost child. But Nox thinks that there is another reason behind its name in the game, because even if an adult defeats a demonic beast, the monster will not drop anything. Because the system set the beast difficulty level increased for adults, Nox curious how many he died in the game to find a suitable method for attack. Nox thinks that the difficulty of Forest of Missing Children is at least 2.5 stars out of 5 stars. Nox smiles and feels that this game is indeed a difficult game. When Nox played this game, he tried hard to conquer this forest without knowing what items appeared. But now Nox feels that this is very suitable for him who has terminally ill characteristics. Nox started to stop his steps and started to take a torch from his bag. Nox lit his torch, which made his vision brighter. Nox saw the torch he was holding. The light from the torch began to spread, which caused the fog to disappear. Nox thought that the main key to conquering the Forest of Missing Children was to see the direction of this smoke, and especially the opposite direction from the smoke. Nox thought that before he moved, Nox held his sword while looking at the bushes. Nox told someone who was hiding in the bushes not to hide and immediately appeared. The person who was hiding did not show himself and did not make a sound. Nox asked the person whether he planned to continue hiding. Nox started holding his sword. Without removing the sheath of his sword, Nox slashed through the bushes and a woman was heard screaming. Some time ago, while looking in the mirror, a woman was confused about why her face wasn't working. That woman was Talia. She didn't understand why Nox wasn't attracted when she was thinking about that. Emma called the princess. Emma asked Talia to stop following Nox, because if Talia did that, she would also be the target of criticism. Talia confidently asked Emma not to worry about that because she would make sure Emma didn't get fired. Emma felt bad for her because she didn't mean it like that. At the moment, Emma was holding a candle. While walking, Talia thought that it wasn't because Miss Chell, with a smile, Emma thought that Miss Talia's talents would definitely be respected as the next head of the family. Emma was confused as to why her young lady was in a hurry because she felt weaker than her older sister. Emma opened Talia's room thinking that she had given up and was going to sleep now. But when Emma entered her young lady's room, she was surprised because her young lady was not here. Emma panicked by her daughter's disappearance. With trembling hands, she felt that this was a disaster. Emma guessed. If now Talia is going to meet young Master Nox, remembering that Emma woke up the other servants, making them ask why she woke them up. On the other hand, when Nox had made the person hiding in the bushes come out, the person who came out was Talia carrying a dagger at her feet. She smiled and laughed a little because she had been discovered. Nox was surprised because it turned out that the one hiding was Talia. Talia greeted Nox with a small laugh. Nox asked Talia what was she doing here. When Talia wanted to explain, there was a bush moving behind her. Realizing that, Nox immediately moved. While pointing the torch at the bush, he told Talia to step back. Talia was confused by the sudden action what Nox did. Something came out of the bushes. The animal had claws and also a long tail. What is moving now is no longer a human but a gray wolf. Talia is confused because she doesn't know that this forest is the habitat of gray wolves, and now she only carries a dagger. Nox is holding Talia's waist while the gray wolf is looking at the two of them. The wolf starts to growl and bracing his head up. The wolf then started to roar, calling for his friends to come. Nox, who was worried about Talia, started to move his body closer. The wolf continued to roar on the full moon. When the wolf was roaring, Nox smiled. Talia, who saw the wolf, became a bit afraid. Nox started running, making Talia surprised. Nox quickly dropped his torch and started slashing the wolf. Nox slashed at its head, making the wolf die instantly. Talia, who saw it, was shocked. Talia was amazed and thought it was extraordinary. Even though she knew that it was just a wolf, she didn't expect Nox to kill her like that. Talia saw Nox, making her shocked. With a lot of wolf blood on her face, Nox looked back at Talia. Nox asked Talia once again because previously he thought if her older brother had followed her. Why was Talia here? Talia nervously reasoned that she was here because she was on night patrol. Knox didn't believe Talia's excuses and told her to tell the truth. If she didn't tell the truth, Knox would leave Talia. Hearing that Talia panicked, she quickly held Knox's hand. Knox was surprised by Talia's behavior like this. With a nervous voice, Talia explained that she was following Knox because when she saw Knox from the window, Talia thought that Knox had a trainer, and without thinking, she headed into the forest to follow Knox. Knox smiled. He was now thinking about three things. Beyond Knox's expectations, Talia rated him too highly, and Knox was relieved because Talia didn't have bad feelings for him. Seeing Talia, who was afraid of being abandoned by him, Knox assumed that Talia was a small child who didn't know that the world was a dangerous place because she was following other people in the middle of the night. Because Knox couldn't leave him here because Talia was an important character. While sighing, Knox told Talia to follow him. When Knox walked, he stopped and remembered something. Knox wanted to say one thing to Talia. Knox said that he didn't help her, but he just solving the problem so that disturbing incidents don't happen in her family. Talia accepted the statement and also apologized. Knox thought that with this Talia would not follow him and do something dangerous again. With a blushing face, Talia started calling Knox's name. With nervous feelings and ambiguous feelings, she thanked Knox. Knox was surprised by Talia's behavior. Talia added that she also had something to say, but just as she wanted to say something, she was shocked by something in front of her. The shadows of a pack of wolves were visible. Knox, who was also conscious, started to raise his torch. When Knox raised his torch, a pack of wolves began to be clearly seen surrounding them. Talia, who was scared, held Knox's cloak. While giving the torch to Talia, Knox told Talia toking away from him made Talia surprised. Knox told Talia that she was only blocking him while he was swinging his sword. Even though there is a problem that Knox didn't expect, Knox tries to stay focused. This is the place before the scenario starts and is the prologue area. Knox knows from the game he played that there will be no boss here, but an elite monster one rank below the boss monster will appear, and the monster it is the evolution of the Grey Wolf that he had just killed, and the monster's name was Elite Grey Wolf. Even though Knox knew his enemy, Knox felt that something would not go smoothly for him. The wolves started to run towards him, but with focus Knox started to slash them. Knox felt that there were times when the wolves realized that there was a possibility that they were cornered. Knox was surprised by the wolves that continued to attack him. The other wolves jumped up and were about to attack him. Knox felt that he will repeat the times when he was still Yuchan and playing inner lunatic. Knox started to raise his sword, and then he held it with both hands. While slashing, the wolf Yang was about to attack him. Knox felt that he was just a weak person. After doing that, Knox became somewhat relieved. Talia, who held the torch tightly, Talia said that it was very. Talia also felt that Knox had not shown all his strength because Talia's technique just now was more powerful than when Knox fought his brothers. Talia was curious if Knox had ever killed a gray wolf before, remembering Knox's words telling her to stay away from him. Talia felt that Knox thought that she was very weak. Talia heard a loud roar from the direction of the forest. Knox and Talia, who heard it, were shocked. Knox realized the sound and thought that when it finally appeared, you could see gray wolf legs, but bigger gray wolf legs appeared. It turned out that it was not an ordinary gray wolf but an elite gray wolf. Elsewhere in the forest, the maid and butler were looking for their missing young master, and when the danger sign was visible, one of the butlers saw two small footprints. He guessed that it was probably footprints, the young master and Miss Talia. He said that it was possible that the young master had gone to the forest of missing children. Hearing that, Emma panicked. And the butler said that the young master was with Miss Talia, which shocked Emma and said that it was impossible. Emma frantically asked them to quickly save the two of them, but Rothwell cut her off and said that it was impossible. Emma was confused with Rothwell's statement and wanting an explanation. Rothwell explained because this was a forest that had not been successfully conquered by the Rainhafer family. Forest of Missing Children is one of the places with the highest rank in the Rainhafer family. Even though the Rainhafer family is known as the strongest dark family in the South, in reality there are still forests that have not been conquered by them, and that is the same as them being incompetent, and of course, they didn't know about the fact that immature children could enter the forest, and also the fact that this forest could only be conquered by children. Rothwell was confused because he didn't know the reason why his young master entered the forest. Rothwell felt that it was impossible for his young master to be bewitched by a mind-controlling monster because his footprints looked alert. Plus, there were no traces that managed to pass through the mana barrier. The strongest in this residence, Rothwell concluded that this meant that young Master Knox entered the forest of his own free will. Rothwell clenched his fists, feeling that he had made a mistake. Now that he admits that young Master Knox is not the weak and fragile person he was before, Rotwell tells Emma that there is only one way for the two of them to return safely. The way is that the young master must use his wisdom to find a way, and in order to coming out of the forest, Emma felt worried because for her the chance of young Master Knox doing that was very small. Suddenly they heard a loud wolf voice from inside the forest. Emma became very panicked because if her young lady died, she would be the one to blame. Talia took a dagger from the knife sheath at her feet. Talia held a torch in her left hand and a dagger in her right hand. Knox feeling somewhat amazed that Talia didn't lose concentration even though she was scared. Knox asked Talia not to attack carelessly, which might get her hurt, and told her to stay away. Knox told Talia to save her energy so that Talia could escape when she was being attacked, because for Knox, only then could Talia's chances of survival increase. Knox feels that killing elite gray wolves is not that dangerous because it is only 2.5 stars. But Knox just wants to keep Talia alert so she can react to her surroundings. Knox thinks Talia is good because she can understand it well, but Knox can't yet make herself guard her rear. Knox starts planning her plan again. Knox uses the skill hour of the genius and intending to kill the elite gray wolf with one attack. The elite gray wolf seemed to understand Knox's plan and smiled. Seeing this made Knox surprised. Talia, who was behind him, was surprised. The elite gray wolf chose to rest. The gray wolves around him laughed at Knox. Knox felt angry because the elite gray wolf preferred to mobilize his troops rather than fight Knox himself. A bunch of Gray the wolf started to approach Knox. Knox easily cut down the wolf that wanted to attack him, but suddenly the pack of wolves stopped. Knox was confused by the wolves who suddenly stopped. The elite gray wolves were still silent and didn't make a move. The wolves were apparently making a plan now. They attacked Knox simultaneously, which shocked Knox. Knox started to cut them down one by one, but Knox was lacking. Alert because he left the wolf who wanted to attack him from behind. The wolf roared and was about to attack Knox. In surprise, Knox started to look back. Suddenly a knife stuck into the wolf's head, which shocked Knox. Knox started to look at the direction the knife was thrown. The person who threw it was Talia, who was telling Knox to be careful. Even though Knox was telling Talia torn away if the situation becomes dangerous, but Talia prefers to climb a tree and help him from above. And she couldn't do it and left Knox alone. Knox was surprised by Talia, who tried to help her. While carrying a torch, Talia asked if Knox was okay. Talia was worried about Knox and was afraid that he would get hurt. Knox still didn't think that Talia was helping him. He heard the sound of a wolf moaning, which shocked Knox. With his skill, Knox started to slash the wolf that was attacking him because it continued to attack, making Knox gasp for breath. Knox said to Talia that she was fine while thinking that this was not the time to think about other things. Talia was grateful that Knox was fine. Knox felt annoyed at herself for showing her sad side. When Knox wanted to continue the fight, Knox was shocked. Feet and his hands were shaking. He was annoyed because the side effects of his skill appeared at the wrong time. The elite gray wolves started to come to Knox, but he felt that this wasn't over yet. The elite gray wolf, who knew that Knox was starting to get tired, started walking towards him. Knox smiled because finally the elite gray wolf stood up again. The elite gray wolf started to surround Knox and started targeting Knox. The elite gray wolf looked at Knox while still surrounding him. The monster seemed to have thinking about his plan. At full speed, the monster ran towards Knox. Knox began to focus himself because the monster had come. Knox was surprised by the behavior of the elite gray wolf. Instead of attacking him, this wolf entered the forest. Knox felt surprised and confused by the behavior of this wolf. Knox felt angry with the elite gray wolf, but he began to guess the reason behind his behavior. Knox was surprised because it turned out the elite gray wolf uses cunning methods. This monster attacks Knox from its blind spot, which makes Knox not have time to dodge. The elite gray wolf scratches caused Knox to be injured. Talia felt worried about Knox. After attacking the elite gray wolf, he returned to the forest. While holding back the pain, Knox felt annoyed. Knox was confused by the elite gray wolf star, which was only 2.5 stars, which was not in accordance with the monster's abilities. Currently, Knox feels that this monster is very strong, and the elite gray wolves in the real world. Knox are now much smarter than those in the game. Knox now felt confused. He started to look right and left while thinking that he should have realized when this pack of gray wolves was being controlled by Knox. He didn't even think that they were taking advantage of this forest area. The elite gray wolves started to come out of the bushes again. Quickly, the monster ran towards Knox, which made Knox surprised again. Seeing this monster who wanted to attack him, Nox thought he wanted to continue defending. Nox started to slash it and thought that the slash was successful. To his surprise, this monster immediately moved backwards. Nox was surprised by the intelligence of the elite gray wolf. This monster smiled happily. Nox was surprised because it turned out that this monster was waiting for this gap with perfect timing and was targeting weak point. This monster aimed for its weak point when Nox swung his sword widely. Nox again felt irritated by what this monster was doing. Suddenly, Nox was hit by a side effect of his skill which made his head hurt. When he was in that condition, this monster started attacking Nox, who was in a bad condition. Nox didn't expect this. He felt that he was too excited because he had finished this game many times. While seat towards the monster, he felt that that was why he was too confident that he could do anything. Nox surrendered and closed his eyes while thinking that this was a stupid judgment. The elite gray wolf started to moan in pain, making Nox shocked. Nox saw a dagger stuck in this monster's eyeball. Nox felt that if this monster could take advantage of its open weak point, then Hudson also take advantage of his weak points. And for Nox, the person who can do it is not him. Nox starts to hold his sword tightly again. With all his remaining strength, Nox attacked the elite gray wolf. Nox stabbed it, which made this monster die instantly. With 2 stab wounds that this monster suffered, it made it groan in pain and die instantly. After doing that, Nox's hands trembled. He was very tired after struggling all that time. Talia started calling Nox. When she looked at Nox, Talia realized something. There was still a wolf beneath her that could attack Nox at any time. But luckily the wolf chose to leave. Talia, who realized that the wolf had left, started to come down from the tree. She asked about Nox's condition and whether he was okay. Nox said yes. Nox said that he managed to survive thanks to Talia, but when he wanted to thank you, Nox remembered something. He almost thanked the enemy who would kill him in the future. On the other hand, Talia was confused by Nox, who didn't continue his conversation. Nox turned his face away, telling Talia not to worry about him. Seeing the scratches from the previous elite gray wolf made Talia even more worried and once again asked about Nox's condition. Nox said that this was just a small scratch. Talia was still worried, but Nox said that he was okay. Even though she was worried, Talia was grateful because Nox's other limbs were not injured. When she felt grateful that there was a spider hanging, suddenly the spider came down on Talia's shoulder, who realized that she was confused for a moment. A moment after she realized, she became scared and shouted. Nox, who heard Talia's scream, thought that maybe there were monsters left, and panicked. Talia started to hug Nox. Nox was confused and called Talia. Talia said that there was a spider. When she looked at her shoulder again, she was even more afraid because the spider was still there. Talia screamed in fear. On the other hand, Nox thought how long she would hug him like this. Nox just found out that Talia was afraid of spiders. While getting rid of the spider that was on Talia's shoulder, Nox told Talia that the spider alone made her scared. Nox was surprised by Talia, who followed her into the forest. With a face that was still a bit scared, she asked Nox if he was afraid of spiders. Nox told Talia that if she was afraid of spiders, she wouldn't be able to become a knight. Hearing that made Talia's face turn red. Feeling embarrassed, Talia realized that she had been holding Nox for a long time. On the other hand, Nox felt relieved because finally Talia let go of her too. Nox started cough, who made Talia worried, was that Talia asked about Nox's current condition. Nox didn't expect the side effects to appear again, but Nox told Talia not to worry about it. Nox felt that Talia had really helped him. Previously, Nox wanted to say that he was safe thanks to Talia, but he couldn't say it because Talia suddenly shouted. He was very grateful to Talia even though he couldn't say it directly. The sun is starting to rise and now Nox is planning to get out of this forest. And also Nox managed to get the ring that fell from the elite gray wolf that he killed just now. The sun is starting to rise, and Emma still feels guilty and thinks that her young lady has been killed and all that is what's wrong. Rotwell is confused because it's already morning and they haven't come out yet. He's worried whether they both failed. Miss Talia's disappearance will create problems for both families. The hope of their survival is very small because many children have disappeared in the forest of missing children, and there are many people who secretly say that the Rainhafer family is incompetent. One of them called Sir Rotwell and asked him to look towards the forest, because surprisingly the fog in the forest had disappeared. Rotwell and Emma were surprised because the forest of missing children had been successfully conquered. Emma felt unsure that this forest had been successfully completed and started asking Rotwell. Rotwell confirmed Emma's argument, confirming that now this forest had been successfully conquered, and the possibility they had thought of had come true. Emma felt touched because it meant that young Yuan Nox had succeeded in conquering this forest. Nox and Talia started to come out of the forest of missing children. They gave information that young Master Nox had managed to get out. These people did not think that young Master Nox had succeeded in conquering the forest. One of them thought that this was hard to believe because he came out as if he didn't see something happened. Rotwell couldn't stop his smile because now he was sure that the succession hierarchy of the Rain-Hafer family would be shaken violently. Knox was confused by everyone gathered here. Emma cried while calling her young lady, saying that they were worried about her. Emma hugged Talia, making Talia wonder why she was acting like this. Rotwell said that the other family members were too worried about his young master. Knox felt like she couldn't believe they were worried about someone. It seemed like Knox felt that her family's reputation as a dark family seemed to be going downhill. Talia told her maid Emma to stop crying. Emma stopped crying and started lifting Talia's nightgown. Emma felt angry and wanting to read Talia the 71 Steeliner family rules once again. Talia, with a nervous expression, apologized to Emma. Emma told Talia that she wouldn't blame her because she was just a lowly servant, and she told Emma that the head of the family would teach the young lady about family rules directly. Knox thought that it seemed like the servant also had strong stamina. As usual as Rona, Talia was sad while Emma thanked young Master Knox for protecting her young lady. Knox said that he didn't intend to take Talia with him. Hearing that made Talia even sadder, but Knox said that Talia had helped him a lot, so he asked Talia not to blame herself. Hearing that from Knox made him even more fascinated by her. Back at the Rain-Hafer family residence, Knox put his backpack and sword away. Knox felt relieved that everything was finished. To his surprise, Knox didn't think that Rotwell and the knights were waiting outside the forest with the knights. Knox assumed that Talia was the reason. Even so, Knox felt happy. Knox reached into his pocket. He was happy because he managed to get the secret piece that he was looking for. Informed that Knox has obtained a new artifact, namely an accessory called the Black Flame Ring. The Black Flame Ring has a low intermediate grade and has a darkness attribute and can add +1 stamina and +1 mana, but the only people who can use this ring are dark mana users. This ring has a special effect by using this item when Knox succeeds in defeating his opponent by a certain number of times. A small amount of their life energy will be taken and turned into their own. The stronger the rank of the opponent you beat, the more life energy you can steal. Knox thinks that the only artifact that can steal other people's life energy is the Black Flame Ring that he has now. But Knox knows that wearing this ring does not mean that his life will be longer, because a person's life cannot be extended indefinitely, and judges from the small amount of life energy that could be stolen. Knox felt that it would not be that easy to get rid of chronic diseases. Knox equips the Black Flame Ring while saying that as long as he is trying to make progress, for Knox it is better than living life on the verge of death without hope. After using the ring, Knox feels that his life energy and mana have increased. Knox summons the Hue that is behind the door and said that he already knew Rona was there and told him to come in for a moment. Rona starts to open the door slowly. Rona comes in from outside. She asks his young master, "Can you see through this thing?" With a straight face, Knox said it was possible. Rona felt embarrassed to think that her young master could also see her body too, because Rona was already thinking badly about him. Rona, whose head was flicked, felt painful. Rona was surprised because the snap of her young master's finger hurt more than before. Knox told Rona to stop talking nonsense and told him to arm wrestle with him. Rona reminded his young master that if he wins he will have his salary increased. Knox agreed, but if Rona lost his salary would be cut by 20%. Rona agreed and accepted the bet. They started holding each other's hands and counting down. Confidently, Knox looked up at Rona. When the count was 3, Knox immediately finished the fight quickly, making Rona shocked and unable to reply. Rona felt something was strange and didn't know what had just happened. Rona asked Knox to forget the previous bet because Rona felt that her young master thought that it's not appropriate for a son of a prominent family to cut his servant's salary. Knox feels that it's not right. And also rumors of him being considered a useless person in the Rain-Hafer family spread thanks to someone, Rona, who felt that he was getting nervous. And because of that, Knox no longer cared about trivial things like Rona's honor, who heard that he felt guilty and apologized. Suddenly, Knox's eyes became blurry again. The effects of the frequent sickness trait were active and Knox got a level 2 wrist fracture. And Knox got a level 1 flu trait. Knox felt annoyed with his negative trait. Knox was going to cancel Rona's salary reduction, but Knox asked Rona to bring ice and a warm towel right now. Rona was worried about his young master's pale face. Knox felt that he should be satisfied, got the ring, and now he wants to rest. In his subconscious, someone said that this time it was 1 plus 1. This place became dark, with lots of errors. The final boss was sure of someone's name, and his name was Yuchan.